Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today's video, we are going to put in our 2022 summer garden. So we thought we'd bring you folks along when we did it. This video is probably going to be a bit longer than most of our videos. It's also going to be in kind of a different format. We're ending up filming it over the course of 2 days. So what we're going to do is we're just going to jump right in and we'll start with the planting. So when we plant butternut squash, we just take our little shovel and we want to dig a hole big enough. The idea is going to be, we want it to be the same level in here. We're going to make the hole. Easiest way I like to do it, 2 fingers, flip and squeeze. But look at that root ball. We started all these ourselves, so I was hoping that they had a nice root system, and these do. We started all of the larger squash. So when you put it in the ground, I take my middle fingers, press it down a little bit. We'll backfill all of this around it. And then I like to give it a press around the edges. And then once more in the middle, just to make sure that where that stem is nice and compressed. What you don't want to do is when you water it, you don't want the water to sort of wash away the soil around the stem part, because then it can kind of flop a little bit. If it hits a high breeze or something, it might snap off. All right, so again, here we are. These are the spaghetti squash. These are the ones we're going to have to go over the natural trellis. I'm hoping it doesn't break. I don't think that it will. If so, we can kind of improvise as the year goes along. I really like spaghetti squash. It's one of our favorites. We didn't grow it last year. We did a lot of butternut squash. This year we added in the raised bed, so we're going to take the opportunity to grow the spaghetti squash. So we're just going to take our hand tool, dig to where when we put it in there, be right at the top of the soil level, tickle the roots. Squash you have to be a little careful with when you transplant. Unlike peppers and tomatoes that seem to be pretty tough, squash can be a little delicate when you put them in there. So we'll just backfill around. Then I always like to give it, especially right there around the base, nice tuck in, and voila. So I won't go over this every time, but you can see in here all the eggshells. This is a mix of eggshells and Epsom salts. And for all of our nightshades, our tomatoes, our peppers, and the eggplants, we'll put just a small handful of this at the bottom of the hole when we go to plant them. Okay, so here we are going to plant our banana peppers. We got these seeds from Urban Farmer, I believe. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to take these. We do the peppers the exact same way that we do our eggplants. So we're going to dig a hole. Again, what you want to do is right to where the stem is. And these little packages here, they can be a little bit of a pain. I like to start at the top, flip them over, work them out. Ooh, nice roots on those guys. Set this back up. We'll tickle the bottom. And then before we put those in there, we want to take just a little bit. You see, not too much. Mix it in with the dirt on the bottom. Backfill to the top. Kind of make sure he's back there sort of close to his stake. We did put these stakes in. I like to put them in about a week in advance, mostly because I'm super ready to plant. But for another reason, it gives the dirt a chance to settle around the stake itself, so you don't have to worry about any air pockets or any of that sort of thing. And it's also better to do it beforehand than after, so that you don't take a chance of getting too close to the plant itself and taking out part of its root system. All right, so we'll just go through here, and I like to get pretty close. There we go. Flip them over, take the top. All right. And we'll take him, put it. Oh no, Oh, see, I'm trying to get in a hurry. There we go. Work you in. All right. Okay, so we've planted our bell peppers, our banana peppers, and we're on to our bell peppers. It's going to be pretty much the same song and dance. Handful of the Epsom salt and the eggshell mix. Stir it into the bottom. Flip your bell pepper. I like to save these. We use these year in and year out. We started saving them back when before we started, our own peppers, or before we were starting our own plants, I'm sorry. And we had a whole bunch of them, and I felt like a hoarder. I was like, well, I'm not ever going to use these. And this year we almost ran out of them. So I'm glad I kept every one of them. Going forward, we'll have them. And what I've started doing is just asking friends and family and such to save theirs. And there we go. See, on here, we had to take these in a couple nights ago, and I didn't lift the grow lights on one of them and end up burning the leaves on that guy. So that's a bit of a disappointment. So we've moved on to the eggplant. Most of these are pretty much the same, You just dig a hole. The objective is going to be to plant it up to put your plant in the ground up to its level soil here. Put that in. We're going to stir that in a little bit. And we'll pop these guys out of here. Ooh, look at those. Some more good roots on these. It's always nice to have a good root system to give your plants a good spot to start from. Make sure you break that roots up just a bit on the bottom. And that's it for the eggplant. And well, I had said after the eggplant that we were moving on to the squash, but I forgot we had some hot peppers to plant. So we're going to put these cayennes in. Then we'll put in some chili peppers. The only thing I'll note different about these than the peppers we showed earlier are these cayenne peppers I plant much closer. You can kind of see I put 6 instead of 4 in these areas. The reason is the cayennes aren't quite as big whenever they grow taller, and I've noticed somehow the closer you do them, they seem to put off more. So I don't know if it's they shade each other out. I'm not sure exactly what the proximity has to do with the production, but we tried it 2 years ago from my uncle, and we grew them this way, or this close, and we got a lot of peppers. So anyway, let me knock these peppers out real quick, and we'll move on to the squash. So we're going to dig the hole, sprinkle in our eggshell and Epsom salt. We'll take the cayenne. We did not start these. These cayennes, again, cayennes aren't our favorite, so my uncle, he just goes down to the local ranch store and he bought them from there, brought them over, and we kept them in the greenhouse until it was time to plant. All right, so now we're going to do the squash, and we're planting down here. We're going to put in 6 yellow squash plants. Over here, we're going to do a crookneck variety, and on the end, we're going to do some of, they're called the yellow scallops. I guess colloquially, we call them patty pans. So what we're going to do here, we're just going to dig these the same as we have everything else. We want to bury it flush with the top of the basin here. We're not going to add any special fertilizers or amendments or anything to the squash. The soil was prepared for this, so let's get this done. Take it, flip out. We'll take just the 3 on the top for these guys. We'll put in one here. As you can see, right to the top, backfill, give them a good press. Then we'll do up here and all the way down. You gonna get that stick, Boopers? You gonna get that stick? No? I almost forgot to include Leslie's little loofahs here. So you can see we're getting a bit of an audience. So these loofahs are real simple. We do the same as we did with almost everything else up to this point. Dig it in. I want to bury it right up to the top of the soil level. Tickle her roots. And there we are. So with our tomatoes, what we like to do is we like to bury them a little deeper. Everything to this point we have buried right up to the soil line of the cell. These we're going to bury a little deeper. And because of that, I do like to take off this first little bitty limb right there. And then what I'll do is I'll end up burying it probably just up to that node. I just don't want that too close to the ground. It can invite a lot of disease and pests and that sort of stuff. So we'll do these a lot like the peppers. We'll make the hole, we'll put in the Epsom salt and the eggshells, and then we'll put in our tomato. Okay. Oh, nice root ball. Break that up just a bit. Then, as always, with these tomatoes, I like to allow just a bit more room. When they get bigger, we can kind of break them up a bit at the top, you know, fork them out, grow them up that way. But I like to give them just a bit more room than you saw with the peppers and the eggplants. The eggplants and the peppers, I like to plant a little closer. My tomatoes, I give a bit more room. So now we're just going to knock out the rest of these and do the same thing. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to plant 3 basil plants, and this is part of our companion planting strategy. We have a video on that. I'll put a link of it to the top, but basil pairs really well with tomatoes, so each one of our beds are going to get 3 basil plants. So let's put those in. So we ended up putting in our 3 basil plants. We have one at either end and then one right in the middle. Again, tomatoes and basil, they go together really well, not only from a palate standpoint, but they also go together in the garden. So we'll plant our Romas a lot like we did our beefsteak tomatoes. We're just going to dig a hole. We want to bury it probably about right there. In the hole, we're going to put our Epsom salt and eggshells at the bottom of it. We'll mix it in, backfill it, and make sure that we get it nice and compressed. So let's go ahead and get that done. Backfill it, not quite to the node, but we're pretty close. And that's all there is to it. And we have this basil that we'll put in almost exactly like we did on the other side. All right, so this is something I've been waiting for a while now. Ground cherries. We've talked about them a few times here on the channel. They're also called husk cherries. They're a member, I believe, of the Tomatea family. Anyway, we're really excited to grow them this year to add a little fruit. They have a lot of vitamin C, that sort of thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of stick to the same pattern that we did with the tomatoes. We're going to put the 8 and we're going to stagger them out. We're going to do the same basic thing, plant them right up to the top. I am not going to add in the eggshells and the Epsom salt because I did go ahead and treat this bed here, and it is slightly acidic. So what we did was we put just a little bit more potash in here than we normally would the other beds, and that's just because apparently the ground cherries, they really enjoy an acidic soil, just slightly acidic, you know, it's nothing like major. But this is our first time growing it, so I'll let you know at the end of the year how well that worked out. But we're excited to get started. So we're gonna get them in the ground and I'll show you what they look like. So we've got the 8 ground cherries staggered here. So this is something I'm incredibly excited to get for this year. I sort of pushed everything towards that end a little bit more because behind us over here is going to be the zucchini, and I'm afraid that it's going to sort of crowd out. So I want to give a little bit of leeway on here so that I don't sun out the ground cherries much. But speaking of, up next is the zucchini. So as we did all of these guys, what we're going to do, same bet time, same bet channel, dig a hole, bury it flush with the soil level, make sure it's nice and tight and that the stem has support. And we'll put these in the ground here in just a minute. As you can see, we've only put 6 in this bed. You know, we were putting 8 of the tomatoes and such, but this bed we made it just a hair wider. And we also put in just a bit more compost in the bottom as opposed to, a bit more mulch in the bottom as opposed to the compost. And the reason for that is a lot of the zucchini roots are sort of shallow, but they use a lot of water whenever they're going to fruit. So with that extra bit of the mulch underneath there, hopefully it holds the extra water and we can get extra zucchini this year. It's one of our very favorite summer squashes. So we'll go ahead and put this one in here. Again, we're going to make somewhat of a shallower hole than we have been for the last ones. Whoop. Give it 2 fingers around the stem. And we'll backfill it here. Then we just want to make sure that stem has a nice... And then what we're going to do is, it's getting late in the day today, so we're going to finish up planting. And then tomorrow what we'll do is we'll come out and we're going to put straw on everything that is in the top garden and the pallet garden. All right, so the first thing we're going to do in the pallet garden is put in the melons. We are going to put in 3 cantaloupes and 1 watermelon. And our strategy this year is going to be, we're going to plant them just about like this in each corner. Last year we grew 3 cantaloupe. And they went everywhere. It was awesome. We had a whole bunch of cantaloupe. We probably got, you know, north of 20, 22 cantaloupe through the course of the season. But there was like a dead spot in one corner. And so what we're going to try to do this year, we're going to do it this way. We're going to put the straw in the bottom of it, and we're going to try to tease each melon to go over its own corner, and then sort of out into the walkway. And then we can just sort of walk around them like we did last year. So we're going to plant these the same way we did everything else. We'll dig a hole, and again, the objective here is to plant it level and then just to make sure that the stalk is stabilized. So we dig our hole. There we are. Plant it in. And then, just like everything else, when we get in there, give the stalk a nice push down. Build it back up a little bit, push down a little bit. And all that does is just give it a little bit of reinforcement against the wind. So we'll go ahead and put all the cantaloupe in. All right, so next up is going to be, this is going to be some more bell peppers. You can see we have some voluntary carrots. We sort of put the stakes around just to see what would happen. They seeded themselves last year. So what we're going to do is, we have 7 bell peppers we're going to plant in this. And the reason being is I can't help but feel like we're going to have some pepper plants that are sacrificed to the chickens. They'll just go through and scratch, and before the pepper plants get secure enough, they'll probably end up taking a couple of them out. So we have a plan for bell peppers this year that we want to, with our Roma tomatoes, we sort of want to can those and freeze those together. So I want to make sure that we have plenty of those. So that's the reason we've taken one of these beds for bell peppers as well as the other area. So we'll plant these just like we did all of the other bell peppers. We will use the magnesium sulfate and the eggshells. We'll bury them up to the line. So we've shown this bed a couple times already. These are just the Sweet Million cherry tomatoes that we have down here. So it's going to go in, and we're going to do these just like we did all of our other tomatoes. Any limbs that are low on the stalk, we'll cut those off. We'll bury them, you know, deeper, about halfway between the stalk and the limb that we leave. And that's about it. We'll have to make sure we put in our eggshells and the Epsom salt, of course. So let's get those in the ground real quick. All right, so we came out the morning of day 2, and we've picked up all the containers and we've put those in the greenhouse. So today we're going to start with putting out our eggshell and Epsom salt mix. I don't think I mentioned this yesterday when I was planting, but the ratios of these are 4 parts eggshells to 1 part Epsom salt. So just put it, we use our little Mandalorian bucket. We mix it all up in there real good. And then you can tell this bed, I went ahead and just spread it so you can see the ratios. Just a light spreading on there. So the next step we're going to do this morning is we will cover all of the raised beds in straw, except for we will not add this, and we will not add straw to the old garden. We don't put anything that the chickens like to scratch in those beds until the plants have established themselves. Once the plants are established, we don't have to worry about it. The chickens won't eat the plants. And if they do get in there and scratch afterwards, they're not going to disrupt the plant too much. But right now, with them being, just one day in the ground, it's easy to uproot them or disturb the roots so much that it'll be a negative as far as fruit production for the year. So before we threw the straw down, I forgot to show you folks what we do around our melons and our squash. What we do is we just create a little perimeter around them with Diatomaceous Earth. First time I've said that correctly, I think, in 2 years. So anyway, we just come out and we put a little circle around them. It helps with any ground-based bugs. The Diatomaceous Earth, or DE as we'll refer to it, it is actually an organic substance. They call it fossil flour. So you can buy it from the store. We got a 50-pound bag for like $25. So what we do is I just save this little Gold Bond bottle. I fill it up. It lasts for quite a while. We use it for anything on the ground usually. If we have a really bad infestation of something and we're not worried about it flowering at that time of year or whatever, then we'll dust the whole plant. But anything with an exoskeleton, it will kill. So make sure that you're careful with it around your pollinators. But you can use this, and it is considered organic. So it's one of our strategies to prevent pests in the garden. All right, so now we're ready to take a final tour of the summer 2022 garden. Before we go, I just want to address something. On this channel, I have preached and preached waiting until April 30th to plant. And that's exactly the date that we had picked. What had happened was, and I'm glad we did actually, because like 2 days ago or whatever, there was a frost. It didn't freeze, but there was a frost, and it sure would have got the tomatoes and peppers. Anyway, what we did was now we can see the 10-day forecast all the way up to and past April 30th. So I usually like to see, like the 1st or 2nd. Anyway, it's going to be beautiful. The nights are going to be warm. The days are going to be, upper 70s, low 80s. That's why we made the decision, because we could see the end of the month. We knew it wasn't going to freeze when we put things in the ground. It wasn't a risk that was worth taking. But once I saw it was going to be nice, I couldn't help myself. I had to put it in the ground. Okay, now that we've said that, let's take the final tour. So we'll start the tour off with what we call the old garden. We call it that, and I say this every time I think, but we call it the old garden because down there at the very bottom was the first garden we made way back when we first moved in many moons ago. And since then we've expanded, but it's kind of kept the moniker old garden. The outside of this we use for pollinators and herbs. We have some rosemary and mint, that sort of thing. As the season goes along, we'll get more and more pollinators that are coming up. And in this raised bed, we have put pumpkins. And again, just to notate, you can see the ring of DE around everything. We also did not put any leaves or straw in here, again, just to keep the chickens out of it. So as you enter the top part of the old garden, we have this little wheelbarrow that we use. It's got lemon balm and oregano that comes back every year. She's also put a little iris or something down there on the bottom of it. And then this bed is also a pollinator. I believe that's called an anise hyssop. It's a bush, it comes up, flowers. Pollinators love it. We've thrown a few extra. We put in, I guess, 500 onions or so, and we had extras left. And so what we did was we just kind of stuck them throughout the property so they'll pop up randomly. Over here, this is the bucket that we're growing our peas in. You can see we use the same philosophy. There's a few onions growing in the middle there. These peas are coming up. In a few weeks, we should be getting blooms, and shortly after that, we'll be eating peas. So these are the butternut squash, and down the rows, not much coming up now, but here in the middle, that's where we have our cucumber seeds in. They'll be coming up this week. And the deal, it takes a little bit longer, but this whole area here in the middle will be dill. And what we're hoping is we can grow it there this year, let it go to seed, some of them, and hopefully it'll reseed itself year in and year out. The reason is we use a lot of dill. We pickle a lot. We We pickle cucumbers and we pickle okra. We also enjoy pickled eggs. So anyway, it's an herb that is really, really beneficial for us to grow. It's also something we believe we can sell at the local farmer's market if we get to that point in a couple years. And then of course there's more onions at the end. You'll notice that we have a few of those, or a few spots of onions planted throughout the beds, pardon me. At the end down there is another bucket. It's got onions and peas, same as the one at the other end. The second bed that we have in the old garden, these are going to be the spaghetti squash. You saw us plant those. They're going to be, hopefully grow over this bamboo trellis that we made. Again, it may not work. We'll see what happens. Down here we have our peppers. We have banana peppers and bell peppers. And this down here is the only thing we do not have planted. This will be our sweet potatoes, and we are going to wait until the first weekend of May, I believe, to put our sweet potatoes in. They really enjoy the warmer weather, so it's a better idea, I think, to hold off on them. So we'll go around and check out this bottom row. These on the end are the scallop, the yellow scallop squash, and these are the yellow crookneck. I believe these are the early determinate variety. So sort of the plan is we're hoping that we can get the scallops to sort of grow out and, you know, to start with out into the rows and down the hill down here, while these put off, and they should be prolific for the first month and a half, and then they should, you know, die off. And then maybe this end down here, we'll take it and sort of train it back over that way. We're going to see, this may be too many squash plants, but because these are the determinant on this end, I just wanted to make sure that I had something that was going to last a little later into the summer on this end. And then we have the pepper plants. These were the chili peppers, and then these are the cayenne peppers. So we just sort of segregated these from the other ones. You know, these are the hot peppers, etc. And then the theme, another bed of onions. We eat out of these, we eat at least 1 to 2 of those onions a day. And then on the end of the onion bed, these are the eggplants. We only grew 4 eggplants this year. Last year we had 6, and it was just out of hand. We were giving eggplant away, we were eating eggplant, and we still had eggplant to get rid of. So our neighbors don't really care for it as much as we do, so it's not something like tomatoes or cucumbers that everybody takes. Eggplant is one of those things you either like it or you don't. And it seems like, at least in our area, more people don't like it. So, and then over here we have another bucket that we're growing our sugar peas in. And then we've seen these several times through the tours, the garlic. And you'll see here on our side of the garlic bed, there's some more onions in there. Well, Leslie's pollinator bed here is coming along really nicely. Pardon me. And then behind it we have her loofahs. She grew those last year. Those are fun. And these loofahs are actually from the seeds that we propagated here on the property. So hopefully that works out. We don't have to worry about them cross-pollinating or anything, because they're the only one of their species that we grow. So, and then of course our favorites, the tomato bed. I say the favorites, I'm not sure. There are so many additions. I'm gonna wait till the end of the year and kind of give out like a, you know, a 5-star rating, and I'll rank all the different beds, you know, by production and that sort of stuff. But as of right now, this is one of the things I am the most excited about. I can't wait for the garlic either, to be honest, but you know, it's just not the same because, you know, you dig it all up at once at the end of the season. So it's hard to get excited about it right now. But the strawberries, early June, will be letting the flowers start on those guys. So right now we're cutting them off until June 1st. So, and then the blackberries are starting to come in really nice. We haven't really got a whole lot of blackberries, but this is year 3, and this is the year that we're supposedly going to be able to start picking them. We got about, I don't know, a gallon bag maybe that we froze last year. It was nice through the winter. You know, we had a blackberry crisp, and it was really good. We can make that recipe a couple times, but I'm hoping to get a couple gallons in the freezer for winter goodiness. Also, these front beds here, we put these in originally for blueberries, But we're not planting blueberries until like late October. They'll go in at the same time that we put in our garlic for next year. So we thought, you know, why the heck not? We had these ground cherries. I grew more of them than I needed, and they came up really well. Shout out to Urban Farmer once again. They're not like a sponsor or anything. Their product is really good. But anyway, so we did ground cherries all through here in front of the blackberries. I had started some later just to see. They're like late bloomers like peppers, and I was afraid I wasn't going to get any. Anyway, so I had some smaller ones, and I figured, what the heck, I'll put 4 in there. If they all make it, I'll probably have to thin them out. If not, then maybe we'll get lucky and one out of each side will take over. You can see over here I had to put down that DE again. When I was digging it up, apparently some ants had decided to make a home in there. That DE works really well on something like that. If you disturb the ants and you need to get into garden or whatever, you can put that DE down and they will vacate the area quickly. So just another good use for it. So, and then of course we have down here on the bottom, that's where the chicken strawberries are. Yes, we grow strawberries for our chickens. So, and then we have more areas that are designated as pollinator areas. That's a fig tree. Last year we got one little bitty fig off of it, so we're hoping this year we'll get more. So, and down there we have the muscadines. I'm not sure if we're ever going to get muscadines or not. I'm hoping that we do. We're thinking about putting a bird net, since we have down there we have the seed bed that we had talked about earlier. So I might just cover the whole gosh darn thing and see if I can't keep the birds from eating my muscadines. So now we'll come up here to where we call this the top garden. Down here, and this bed here will be filled with pollinators. I believe the second weekend, I'll have to check the calendar, but I think it's the second weekend of May that we have marked to break this ground through here. Leslie has it's a local mix that we use for pollinators. And so eventually what we're hoping to do eventually, is to take this whole area and it just reseed itself every year, so that we don't have to take the tiller through there. But for now, they're not seeding themselves the way that we would like, as thick, that sort of things. And some of them tend to, muscle out the other ones if we let them go. So anyway, we'll put that in a couple weeks. I'm sure we'll show that when we do. So let's step now into the top garden. Everywhere I go in the yard, I say, well, this is probably my favorite addition, but it's probably whatever I'm looking at that time. So let's start down here at the bottom. You can see these cabbages are gorgeous. They don't have a bite on them, so our net idea is working out. What I'm hoping is this early spring, as the butterflies and moths are moving through, they stay the bleep off of my cabbages, and I don't get the worms that have a tendency of eating my cabbages. So our potatoes are all coming up. They look really nice. We'll probably revisit the potatoes here in 2 weeks when I have to go through and heal them the first time with the dirt. I'm gonna put a little video together, start to finish this year, I think. Sort of show how, beginning to end, how the potatoes work. We'll go down here and start on this end now. This bed down here we planted, I don't know, 3 days ago or so. This is going to be bush beans, but there are golden wax bush beans. And then here we have the Kentucky Wonder pole beans. They're a stringless variety. So we put this trellis in, and then we had these here. My uncle found them. He was going through some scrap, asked him if I wanted them for trellises. And here at the Garden Hutch, if we can use it as a trellis, we probably will when it comes down to it. So we're hoping to get enough of these pole beans this year to maybe can a dozen or so pint jars for the winter time. And my very, very favorite thing about the summer, these are our first tomatoes we'll review today, but these are the slicing tomatoes. These are Beefmaster tomatoes. We grew beef steak last year. They were pretty good. They were not as prolific as I would like. They did get big. They had a great taste to them. Actually, and they ripened really well. We didn't have any issues with blossom end rot or anything. The only thing was they weren't as prolific as I would like. I love tomatoes. Anybody who watches the channel knows I love tomatoes. So I want a bunch of them. I'm gonna give these a try. If we get more of them and they're the same size, comparable taste, I'll probably grow these. If not, I'll go back to the beefsteak. But also point out, we did, just once again, we put in basil. We put 3 in each bed just to make sure that we had something like a companion plant. Basil is really good for your tomatoes. This is the second tomato bed. And these tomatoes over here, these are the Roma tomatoes. And with our Roma tomatoes, we hope to can most of those as pasta sauce. The peppers that we showed in the other bed, that's probably what we're going to use them for. I put in extra because I love bell peppers and tomatoes together. So this year we kind of stepped our pepper game up just a little bit more than what we did last year. These are more ground cherries. We made the beds a little more acidic for these guys. Apparently they like the pH a little more acidic. Same reason why we put them in the blueberry beds. Blueberries also like a high acidity. So that was to our advantage. So that's why we just decided, you know what, we'll put ground cherries in there. We had never tried ground cherries until last summer at the local farmer's market. Somebody was growing them and they were absolutely delicious. We did our research on them, and apparently they are very high in vitamin C. So we decided, you know what the heck, we should give them a try. The final bed that we'll review here in the top garden are the zucchinis. We love zucchini, zucchini bread. Zucchini also freezes really well. You can slice it and freeze them individually. You can stick them in the freezer on wax paper and then just transfer them to a gallon bag once they're done. So anyway, we love zucchini. We're still eating zucchini from last year. So we kind of wanted to give it its own space. One of the things I did want to point out, I haven't said yet, but you know, sort of like we did the cabbages, we kind of do these plants sort of in like a checker pattern. And that's sort of going to be our answer for crop rotation, right? So it's going to be in the same bed and there may still be some of the same pests, but what we're going to try to do to make our soil last longer and stay healthier is we'll do it this way, document it, and then the following year we'll move, we'll just do it the opposite pattern. We'll grow up here, down, and vice versa. And what that should do is over time, that should reduce the stress on the microbes and the soil itself. So now we will go to the pallet garden. Ray, you catching some shade? All right. So we'll start off here with this bed. We put our melons in here. We showed that earlier. We did 1 watermelon, 3 cantaloupe. I'm not sure how it's going to work. It may be a bit too crowded. Last year we got away with it. We put it in the corners. We put it in this bed because it gives it a bit more room if it wants to sort of spider out a little bit. Like I said, we got a lot of melons out of that one bed last year, so we're going to try that again. Below the melons, this is going to be, we have our beets here. They'll be ready, I don't know, probably into June-ish or so. We'll be able to pull those out. These are going to be our spring, early summer turnips. When these beets come out, what we'll do is we'll put turnips over here. When these beets come out, pardon me, and when these turnips come out, what we'll do is we'll turn around and we'll put in our fall beets. So we kind of use this bed to rotate between beets and turnips. And it seems like we're always getting one or the other out of there. So we enjoy those root vegetables, beets, turnips, carrots, that kind of stuff. So what we're trying to do is space them out to where we can have them available fresh from the garden as long as possible throughout the year. So moving on to our carrot bed. Now, again, I've talked about this before. What I would like to do is, last year when we planted carrots, I put in 6 rows and it was far too crowded. So this year I was like, well, in the springtime, we're going to try 4 rows. And I believe I left a little too much room. So the next step is going to be 5. So anyway, in here, in the fall carrots, we're going to use this same one, see if it'll seed itself a little bit. But we'll use this same one and we'll put in 5 rows of carrots. And hopefully that's the sweet spot for carrots in these pallet beds. Now on to, this is the pepper bed that we showed us planting. Again, we did the banana peppers and the bell peppers, but on these you can tell that we put all the straw and stuff in here, and the reason is it just does so much to help save with the water evaporation in the summertime. It also will catch some of the seeds, and most of the seeds, if they land in the straw, they won't germinate, and even if they do, you can pull them out real easy. So it also helps a lot with that aspect of the garden. And then this is what we call our salad garden. We're getting, I don't know, 2-3 salads a week right now out of here. We've been eating this leaf lettuce up here, and what you can do is we've been thinning the radishes out. Some of these guys are getting, let's see if we can get in there, and yeah, some of these radishes are getting really good size, and they are delicious. And the fall radishes can get a little spicy because every once in a while they'll catch a freeze. But our spring radishes, of course, we got lucky this year and they didn't catch a freeze once they started developing the actual radish itself. So those things are nice and sweet, and we say it all the time, but the greens, don't throw those out, add them to your salad. That also is one of the reasons why this leaf lettuce has lasted so long, is because we use the radish greens to go with it. So we're going to try to ride this out as long as we can. You know, I don't know, in about a month and a half, 2 months, this stuff will all be gone, the radishes will be eaten, and then the kale and the larger leaf lettuces that you see down here, or I'm sorry, the head lettuces, hopefully those will make it. And then once the kale gets big enough, we can start eating the kale and the Swiss chard over there. Whenever we get the radishes out, it'll get more light, the chard will go kind of start growing a little bit bigger, and then through the majority of the summer we'll be able to eat kale and chard as our source of greens in our salads. And the last bed for the day, I love them. These are our cherry tomatoes. Showed when we planted them, but I had to go over them once again. Just right now my mouth is just watering thinking about all this stuff. So I'll admit at this point I am exhausted. But however, it's been a whole lot of fun. This is my favorite time of the year. We put so much effort and research and things into getting to this point, right, where you get your plants in the ground. There's a huge sense of accomplishment, I won't deny it. Now if we can just keep them alive and we can get some decent fruit, we'll be making something out of it. So anyway, to all of you folks that have made it to the end of the video, I just want to say thank you. If you have not, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps us out. You can hit the little bell icon. YouTube will let you know when we upload new content. Until next time, I hope you folks take care of yourselves. Peace.